Lucky Luciano, they call him the father of the modern criminal world. The man who gathered scattered families into one structure, the Syndicate. But legends always sound like it was inevitable. Like power walked in on its own and sat down beside you. In reality, power doesn't come. You rip it out. Chapter 1. The Apprentice. New York. Lower Manhattan. 1927. Thursday, 6:12. Morning in New York doesn't begin. It opens the betting. Coffee on the corners. Newspapers tied up with twine. Footsteps of people leaving too early for places you come back from too late. The city pretends it's just a day. The day pretends it isn't a war. Through 6:18. Lucky Luciano stood by the window on the second floor above a tailor shop. Not a headquarters. A room, a table, a phone, a safe. Power in this city rarely looks like power. More often, it looks like rent. Two things lay on the table. A notebook, full of numbers, and a pistol that didn't need them. Lucky took the notebook, not the weapon. Because a weapon solves a problem, and a notebook solves a man. 6:23. Salvatore Sally Moretti came in, a childhood friend, a man who smiled like even bad news was just weather. Sally set an envelope on the table. Not a seal, a bill. Came in from the docks, he said. 3 trucks, 2 like clockwork. The third, like a prayer. Slow, dirty. Lucky flipped through the sheets. How much didn't make it, he asked. Sally shrugged like it was pocket change. Couple crates, maybe a mistake. Maybe they mixed it up. Mistakes are what poor men call an accident. Rich men call them a habit. Lucky looked up. Maybe isn't an answer, he said. Sally stopped smiling. Not because he was offended. Because he understood. Lucky wasn't talking today. He was auditing. You 6:31? The phone rang. Not loud, certain. Like a man used to being expected. Lucky picked up. The voice was older, rough, with a cigarette living inside it. Charlie, come to me, the voice said, and dress decent. Not for a funeral, for a talk. Lucky didn't ask why. In this world, why sounds like, I'm not ready. Understood, Don D'Angelo, he said. Don Vincenzo D'Angelo. Old boss, old rules, old fear. The receiver clicked. A click is a signature, too. 6:44. Sally stood by the door while Lucky buttoned his coat. Calling again? Sally asked. Lucky checked his pocket. Pistol, cash, knife. Not for a fight. For certainty. He's not calling me, Lucky said. He's calling what I know. Sally frowned. And what do you know? Lucky glanced at the notebook. Who's eating out of the till? He said. And who talks the loudest about honor afterward? Honor in New York rarely lives in people. More often, it lives in the words used to cover dirty hands. 7:10. The D'Angelo house in Brooklyn was warm and quiet. Quiet there cost money. Inside it smelled like lemon, tobacco, and the kind of thing you can't wash out. They led Lucky into a room where the furniture was heavier than the men. Don D'Angelo sat at the table. Beside him, his capo, Pietro Pete Baldini. Pete's eyes were kind. Kind eyes aren't a guarantee. They're camouflage. On the table lay the same object you find in any office of power, a folder. Sit, Charlie, the Don said. You're fast, that's good. Fast men sometimes don't see the wall ahead. Lucky sat. Straight. Straight isn't only for the well-mannered. Straight is for men who don't want to show a weak spot. They say there are losses at the docks again, the Don said. And they say you walk around there like an owner. Pete smiled. Smiles in rooms like this are knives without blades. For now. Lucky nodded. "There are losses," he said. "And there's no owner down there. There are people taking extra." The Don tapped a finger on the table. "You have names?" Lucky didn't answer right away. A pause is the time it takes to test the air. "I do," Lucky said. "But I didn't bring names." He took out the notebook and set it down neatly. Not a challenge, not a plea, a document. "I brought dates, routes, and sums," he said, "and the men who saw it, and the men who looked away." Pete tilted his head a little. Too soft. Too attentive. Lucky noticed. Noticing is cheaper than burying. 7:26. The Don turned the pages slowly. Slow isn't age, slow is control. "You're smart, Charlie," the Don said. "Smart men are dangerous, because they always think being smart will save them." Lucky met his eyes. "Smart doesn't save you, Don," he said. "Smart counts. The ones who listen to numbers. Those are the ones who get saved." Pete gave a small hum. Almost nothing. But Lucky heard it. Laughter at a funeral is a bad sign. A hum during a money talk is worse. The Don closed the folder. "Fine," he said. "I'll handle it." He paused, then added, "And don't dig too deep. Some holes were dug before you were born." Lucky nodded. "I'm not digging," he said. "I'm just watching where the ground gives way." 7:40. As Lucky was leaving, Pete caught up with him in the hallway. "Charlie," he said quietly, "you're doing the right thing. The Don values the loyal." Lucky stopped. Loyalty is a word used by men who want a free service. In this city, nothing is free. "The Don values order," Lucky said, "and loyalty. That's when nobody asks the price." Pete smiled wider. "Good line," he said. Lucky walked away without looking back. Only men expecting a knife in the spine look back. Lucky wasn't expecting it. He was counting it. 8:05. Sally waited in the car on the corner. "Well?" he asked when Lucky got in. Lucky shut the door. The sound was dull, like a period. The Don said, "I'll handle it," Lucky said. Sally exhaled. "That's good." Lucky looked at the street. Workers, storefronts, trucks. Nothing unusual. New York knows how to hide the unusual inside the ordinary. "That's not good," Lucky said. "That's polite." Sally frowned. "What's the difference?" Lucky turned to him. "Good is when a man fixes the problem," he said. "Polite is when a man decides what the one who brought him the problem is going to become." 8:19. They drove to the docks. The docks don't like idealists. Salt eats everything. Metal, shoes, confidence. A security man stood at the gate. New. Lucky didn't know him. Unfamiliar faces in a familiar place aren't an accident. They're an invitation. Lucky got out of the car. "Who are you?" he asked calmly. The guard swallowed. "Pete put me here," he said. "Said there'd be order." Lucky smiled with one side of his mouth. "Order doesn't get posted," he said. "Order gets paid." And he walked in. 8:33. The warehouse was too clean. Clean is a good sign in a hospital. In a warehouse, it means somebody swept the tracks. Sally stepped closer to the stacks. "The crates were here," he said. "I remember, I counted." Lucky crouched and ran a finger along the floor. Dust. But not the right dust. Freshly brushed. "Somebody loaded up last night," Lucky said. Sally looked at him. "Maybe our guys? On orders?" Lucky stood. "An order always leaves paper," he said, "even if the paper is a whisper in the right ear." 8:47. A bang sounded. Not a gunshot. more like a board dropped. But the men in the warehouse flinched like it was a shot. Lucky froze, watched the reaction. Reaction is more honest than words. In the far corner, 2 dock workers looked away too fast. Lucky walked over. Not fast. Fast is when you're trying to scare someone. He wanted something else. "What are your names?" he asked. One stayed quiet. The other answered too quickly. "Tony. Tony Rizzo." Answers that come too fast smell rehearsed. Lucky nodded. "Tony," he said, "tell me one thing. Who came by last night?" Tony swallowed. "Nobody," he said. It was quiet. Quiet at the docks. Happens only one way, when somebody paid for it. Lucky looked at Sally. Sally understood without words and drifted toward the door, closing off the exit. Not to attack, so the conversation wouldn't run. 9:02. Footsteps sounded outside. Heavy. In a group. Lucky turned his head. 3 men came into the warehouse. Expensive suits, empty faces. One had a scar that didn't invite questions. Another had a smile that forbade them. The third was the lead. Lucky knew him. Frankie Knuckles Lombardi, Pete Baldini's man. Frankie looked around like he was checking who owned the air. "Charlie," he said, "the Don's busy. Pete asked me to pass this along. The docks aren't your concern. Your concern is doing what you're told." Lucky didn't move. "Pete doesn't own the docks," Lucky said. "Pete is the man who needs to explain why crates keep disappearing." Frankie smirked. "You want too many explanations." Lucky nodded. "Because I count too damn well," he said. 9:06. Frankie stepped closer. "You understand how this looks?" he asked. "I do," Lucky said. "It looks like somebody thinks I'm going to stay quiet." Frankie lifted his hand. Not quite a threat. More like a suggestion. Sally tensed. A friend's tension is a rope on your throat, even before it's pulled tight. Lucky raised his palm. One gesture, and Sally went still. "Not here," Lucky said quietly. "The dock's here, and rumors cost more than bullets." Frankie leaned in, almost whispering, "Then be quiet, Charlie, and you'll live a long time." Lucky met his eyes. "Long lives belong to men nobody fears," Lucky said, "and I'm not planning on being convenient." 9:11. Frankie straightened up. "All right," he said. "Message received." He nodded to one of his men. The guy walked to a stack and kicked a crate. The wood cracked, bottles spilled out. One broke, and the smell of alcohol hit hard. "See?" Frankie said. "Losses happen. Accidents happen. Accidents in this world always travel with security." Lucky took a step forward. Slow. "You're pretending this is about bottles," Lucky said. "But it's about me." Frankie smiled. "Everything in this city is about you, Charlie, as long as you still think you're somebody." He turned and walked out. All 3 left, like they'd never been there. But the smell stayed. Smell is what's left when people and words leave. 9:27. Sally came closer. "You pissed them off," he said. Lucky looked at the broken glass. "They were angry before me," he said. "I just happened to be nearby." Sally was quiet a moment. "What now?" Lucky wiped his fingers on a handkerchief, staring at dust, at the crack, at the empty gap between stacks. "Now we find out," he said. "Who's stealing?" Sally raised an eyebrow. "We already—" Lucky cut him off gently. "No, we know somebody's stealing. We find out who's paying for the quiet." 9:41. They walked out of the warehouse. The The new guard was still by the gate, looking at the ground, like a man who'd picked a side but hadn't gotten used to the weight of it. Lucky stopped beside him. "What's your real name?" Lucky asked. The guard swallowed nervously. "Joey," he said. "Joey Caro." Lucky nodded. "Joey," Lucky said. "Today you're going to watch one thing." "What thing?" Lucky leaned in a little. Not threatening. "That's how you talk to tools, not enemies." "License plates on the trucks that come at night," Lucky said, "and faces that don't belong here." Joey looked up. "And if—" Lucky didn't let him finish. "If you don't see anything, you'll stay alive," Lucky said. "If you do see something and keep quiet, you'll also stay alive, but not for long." He straightened. "I pay for the truth, Joey, but the truth has to come fast." 10:03. The car pulled away. Sally stayed quiet a long time, then said, "You're going against Pete." Lucky stared ahead. "I'm not going against Pete," Lucky said. "I'm going to the one holding Pete on a leash." Sally turned his head. "The Don?" Lucky didn't answer right away. "Not yet," he said. "But if the leash leads there, we'll see it." He tapped the notebook with a finger. "Numbers don't lie, Sally. People lie when they think numbers are just paper." 10:21. They pulled up at the same tailor shop. Lucky climbed the stairs, opened the door to the room, sat at the table. He took out a clean sheet. Not a pistol, not a bottle, not a prayer, a sheet. Because in New York, 1927, the most dangerous weapon is order when someone decides to steal it. Lucky began to write. And every stroke wasn't a plan. Every stroke was the beginning of a rebellion. Nobody was calling a rebellion yet. Chapter 2. The Price of Independence. New York, Manhattan, 1928. Monday, 1907. Evening in this city doesn't get dark. It closes out the register. Light in the shop windows, laughter in the bars, and under all of it, the quiet grind of people who think nobody's counting them. Lucky was counting. 1912. The room above the tailor shop felt tighter, not from furniture, from names. On the table, a map of neighborhoods cut out of an old newspaper. Red marks, blue marks, other people's places, their places, places that still pretended to belong to no one. Sally Moretti sat on the windowsill, rolling a coin across his fingers. "You really want to do this?" he asked. Lucky didn't lift his head. "I'm already doing it," he said. "It was called work yesterday. Tomorrow they'll call it a revolt." Sally gave a joyless smirk. Revolts sound good in songs. In real life, they sound like gunshots. "Then we'll make it so the gunshots are rare," Lucky said, and always aimed the right way. 1926. A knock at the door. 2 taps. A pause. 1 tap. A code, not for safety, for discipline. Nino, stroke. Bruno came in, a bookkeeper who saw percentages instead of faces. Behind him, Vince Longcapello, a driver and a messenger, and 2 more, not soldiers. The kind of men nobody notices until something important goes missing. Lucky looked at them the way you look at a tool, not with tenderness, with an understanding of weight. "No need to sit," he said. "This isn't dinner." They stayed standing. That's how men stand, when they didn't come for comfort. They came for a decision. 1933. Lucky spread papers on the table, not orders, offers. "You're tired," he said. "Not from the work, from the way every month starts like peace and ends like funerals." One of them, young, a scar on his chin, swallowed. "Don D'Angelo holds the neighborhood," he said. "He's got men. He's got fear. Lucky nodded. He's got the past, Lucky said. And the future doesn't like being held by the throat. Sally stopped rolling the coin. Charlie, he said quietly, they didn't come to hear philosophy. They came to find out what it costs. Lucky looked at Sally, long, calm. Right, Lucky said. Then listen to the price. He tapped the first sheet with a finger. No more accidental wars on corners, he said. A corner is business. War is loss. Money gets counted twice, once by the man who takes it, the second time by the man who checks it. If somebody disappears, that's not fog, that's a cause. And the cause gets named. A pause. And most of all, Lucky said, everybody gets a share, not a favor, a share. A share is a word that makes men more honest and more dangerous. 1951, Nino Stroke asked, and what about Pete Baldini? Sally tensed. Pete's name in that room was a match next to gasoline. Lucky answered evenly. Pete stands between me and the docks, he said. That means Pete stands between me and the money, and I don't like men who stand between me and money. He's the Don's capo, Vince said. Then he should act like a capo, Lucky said, not like a cashier with no report. 2004. Another knock. No code. Loud. That's not how friends knock. That's how men knock, when they don't care who hears. Sally jumped off the sill. Lucky raised a hand. One gesture. And everyone went still. Lucky walked to the door and opened it. A runner stood there, a kid, dirty, out of breath, eyes darting like he was looking for a place to hide the words. Charlie, he forced out. From the docks. Joey. That guard. They took him. Sally cursed through his teeth. Lucky didn't. He just closed the door. A closed door is when the conversation turns inward. Who took him? Lucky asked. Frankie Knuckles guys, the kid said. Said the boy looks too much. Sally stepped toward the table. This is on you, he told Lucky. Not a blame, a diagnosis. You gave him a job. Lucky nodded. And I gave him a chance, he said. In this city, a chance often looks like a mistake. 2019. Lucky looked at the men in the room. There's your price, he said. You wanted to know what a share costs. It costs other people's nerves. And sometimes, other people's friends. Sally snapped his head up. Other people's? Lucky met his eyes. For now, he said quietly. For now? The words hung heavy. When friends start hearing themselves inside other, friendship switches to a different currency. 2033. They drove to the docks. New York rode along beside them, streetcars, signs, shop windows. Ordinary life held together by extraordinary deals. One lamp burned by the warehouse. The light was weak. But it was enough to see the main thing, 2 men with shotguns at the gate. Not cops. Worse. Lucky stepped out. Sally stayed beside him. Standing beside someone isn't bravery. It's a signature under shared risk. One guard raised his shotgun a notch too high. Can't go further, he said. Lucky looked at him like he was pricing a man by the second. I'm not further, Lucky said. I'm here. The guard smirked. Pete said if you show up, we turn you around. Sally stepped forward. Tell Pete that... Lucky raised his hand. Sally stopped. Words in places like this are expendable. Lucky preferred to spend them exact. Tell Pete, Lucky said calmly. He grabbed the wrong kid. He grabbed my time. The guard didn't understand. Because men like that only understand threats that smell like iron. Lucky took a step back. Let's go, he told Sally. Sally blinked. Just like that? Not just like that, Lucky said. We don't break a door if we can buy the key. 2106. The key was sitting in a bar on Mulberry. The bar was called Luna Rosa, Red Moon. A red moon always means one thing. Somebody dies tonight. The only question is, who and why? Inside, smoke, cards, whispers, and a man named Ray Candle Caruso. He lit cigarettes for anyone who paid, and eavesdropped on anyone who didn't. Lucky sat across from him. I need Frankie, Lucky said. Ray Candle smiled. Everybody needs Frankie, he said. Not everybody stays in one piece afterward. Lucky set money on the table. Not much, enough to show respect. I don't need him in one piece, Lucky said. I need access. Ray's eyes slid to the bills. Access costs more. Lucky added more, not because he was afraid, because he knew information likes being fed. Ray leaned in. Frankie'll be at San Marco at 10, back room, games girls, 2 men on the door. Lucky nodded. Thanks, Ray. Ray held his gaze. You're playing a big game, Charlie. Lucky stood. No, he said. I just stopped playing somebody else's. 2141. San Marco smelled like perfume and cheap laughter. Cheap laughter often costs a lot in the morning. 2 men stood at the door. Lucky didn't know them. That meant one thing, somebody was scared enough to post new faces. Sally went in first, like he was just a customer. Lucky followed. Calm. A guard lifted his palm. Closed. Lucky stopped. Not for me, he said. The guard smirked. And who the hell are you? Lucky didn't give a name. A name is a hook they can pull you with. He just took a note from his pocket. Small, clean. 1 word on it. Pete. The guard saw it and turned polite right away. Politeness is fear in a good suit. Go on, he said. 2153. Frankie Knuckles sat at a table playing cards like he was deciding fates. Beside him, a girl smiling like she couldn't smell danger. Lucky walked up. Sally stayed 2 steps back. 2 steps, the distance between a conversation and a shot. Frankie looked up. Oh, Charlie, he said. Heard you like numbers. Consider this a courtesy visit. Lucky sat without being asked. Where's Joey Caro? He asked. Frankie's smile got wider. Who? Lucky leaned in slightly. The dock guard, he said. The one watching plates. Frankie shrugged. I don't deal with guards, Charlie. I deal with men who think they can command. Lucky nodded. Then we're speaking the same language, he said. Me too. 2202. Frankie leaned back in his chair. You come to threaten me? He asked. That's bold. Stupid, but bold. Lucky looked at the cards on the table. Threats are what a man uses when he's got no leverage, Lucky said. I came for leverage. Frankie narrowed his eyes. What kind? Lucky pulled a small sheet from his inside pocket. A copy. A list. Routes and sums. And a signature nobody puts on paper, but you could read it anyway. Frankie saw it, and his smile got smaller. Where'd you get that? He asked. From a world where people think nobody's counting, Lucky said. A pause. Frankie rapped his knuckles on the table. You don't understand what you're stepping into. Lucky looked at him calmly. I understand, he said. That's why I'm stepping. 2211. Frankie leaned in, his voice dropping. Listen, Charlie, I even respect you. Young, sharp, but there's a line. You don't cross it. Because on the other side, it's not money. On the other side, it's war. Behind Lucky, Sally shifted a little. He heard the word war like it was about him. Lucky didn't blink. War already started, he said. You just think it's noise, it's math. Frankie straightened. "What do you want?" Lucky answered at once. "Joey," he said, "and the docs." Frankie let out a short laugh. "You want too much." Lucky shook his head. "No," he said. "I want exactly what you stole from me." 22:18. Frankie waved a hand. One of his men left the room. Sally tensed until the air got thick. Lucky didn't move. A minute later, the door cracked open. A head appeared. "He's downstairs," the guy said. "Alive. Little banged up." Frankie looked at Lucky. "Take him," he said, "and forget you ever saw those papers." Lucky stood. "I don't forget anything," he said. "I just shelf it." Frankie smirked. "Shelf it careful." "Some things explode if you store 'em too long." Lucky met his eyes. "Then I'll be the one who decides when they blow," Lucky said. 22:31. The basement smelled like damp and sweat. Joey Caro sat on a chair, hands tied. His face wasn't smashed too badly, just enough to teach him life isn't a right. Sally rushed to him. "Joey," he said, cutting the ropes. Joey looked up at Lucky. I saw plates," he whispered. "A black truck. No markings. And Frankie was there. He himself." Sally looked at Lucky like the picture finally clicked. "So it's Pete," he said. Lucky didn't answer, because Pete's name wasn't a question anymore. It was a direction. 22:46. They brought Joey out. The night was cold. Cold makes men honest, or dead. Sally got Joey into the car. Lucky paused on the sidewalk, staring at San Marco's door. "What now?" Sally asked. Lucky answered softly. "Now we stop being a part," he said. "Now we become a condition." Sally frowned. "Sounds nice." Lucky looked at him. "It sounds expensive," he said. "And we're the ones paying." 23:09. Back in the room above the shop, Lucky pulled out a clean sheet. Sally sat across from him, tired, angry, but alive. Lucky drew 2 columns. Left. Who's with us? Right. Who's against us? Sally glanced at it. "And the 3rd column?" he asked. Lucky looked up. "The 3rd column is the one still thinking," he said. "They'll decide after the first shot." He set the pen down. "And we'll make sure," Lucky added, "the first shot doesn't happen by accident." Sally nodded silently. Silence is agreement that hasn't turned into an oath yet. Lucky picked up the pen again. Because independence doesn't start with war. It starts with a list. And the list is always shorter than it looks, right up until the first loss. Chapter 3. The Syndicate, New York, Manhattan, 1930, Friday, 5:38. Morning in this city doesn't wake up. It checks who's still alive. Steam from the manholes, milkmen at the stoops, and a silence held together by the fact that nobody asks extra questions. Extra questions are a luxury. Luxury gets paid for in blood. 5:44. The room above the tailor shop was the same, but the air had changed. On the table, 2 lists. Who's with us? Who's against? Lucky didn't write the 3rd list. The city wrote the 3rd list, and the city wrote it at night. Sally sat across from him. His arm was bandaged. Yesterday glass caught him when a storefront on the corner accidentally blew out. Not an explosion. A message. "They're pressing," Sally said. Lucky didn't look at the bandage. "They think I'll back down," he said. "Because by their rules, the young man is supposed to fear the old. And by yours?" Lucky flipped through the papers. "By my rules," he said, "the old is supposed to fear the future." 5:59. A knock at the door. Coded. Nino/Bruno came in and set a thin envelope on the table. "What's that?" Sally asked. Nino answered dry. An address. Lucky opened it. Read it. His face didn't change. Palermo Club, Sally said. That's where the old men meet. Lucky nodded. Old men don't like change. They like it best when change comes in on its knees. Today, Lucky said, we're bringing change in standing up. 6:13. They left early. No entourage. An entourage is noise, and noise is warning. 2 cars, 3 men in each. Weapons, minimal, because a lot of weapons means one thing. You already agreed to a fight. Lucky didn't agree. Lucky scheduled. 6:41. A black Buick sat at the intersection by Canal Street. Too clean for this hour. Lucky saw it. Sally saw it too. A tail? Sally said. Lucky didn't look back. No, he said. A watcher. What's the difference? Lucky kept his eyes forward. A tail wants you scared, he said. A watcher wants you to make a mistake. He added softly, and today, we don't make mistakes. 7:08. The Palermo Club was closed to ordinary people. Ordinary people only come here one way, when somebody's looking for them. Outside, security. Inside, heavy curtains and conversations that don't like witnesses. Lucky walked in first, not like a guest, like a bill. Sally was beside him, face steady, eyes alive. Alive eyes mean a man hasn't decided to die yet. 7:16. 3 men sat in the back room. Don Vincenzo D'Angelo, the old boss, gray-haired, with hands that held power as naturally as other men hold a spoon. Pietro Pete Baldini, the capo. A soft smile, cold eyes, and one more. Don Marco Lanza from the Bronx. An outsider, but not an accident. Outsiders at meetings like this are scales, or executioners. D'Angelo nodded to Lucky. Charlie, the Don said, you're early for rooms like this. Lucky sat without asking. And you're late, Don, he said. Because the world already moved on, and you're still holding on to the chair? Pete smirked. Bold, he said. But bold doesn't replace permission. Lucky turned his head to Pete. You're right, he said. That's why I didn't come bold. I came with permission. He set a folder on the table. A folder is war learning to speak a human language. Numbers. 7:24. Don D'Angelo opened the folder, turned pages slowly. The words were simple. Routes, sums, signatures, dates, and one line came up too often. Pete Baldini. Sally stayed quiet. A friend's silence is when you're holding his life in your palm, and you don't shake your hand. D'Angelo looked up. This is serious, the Don said. Pete spread his hands. Paper, he said. Paper will hold anything. Lucky nodded. Paper holds, he said. People don't. 7:31. Don Marco Lanza spoke for the first time. Charlie, he said, you're not offering peace. You're offering a new power? Lucky didn't argue. I'm offering rules, he said. Because without rules, you lose men every month, and then you call it respect. Pete leaned forward. And if we say no? He asked softly. Lucky looked at him. Then you'll say it once, Lucky said. And after that, you'll repeat it in a whisper, because your voice will be gone. A pause. D'Angelo closed the folder. You want a syndicate? The Don said. Lucky didn't smile. I want money to stop leaking into the dirt, he said. And I want wars to stop being entertainment for men sitting in chairs. D'Angelo watched him for a long time. And you? He asked. What are you in this order? Lucky answered honestly, exactly as honestly as a room like this allows. A knot, he said, not a throne. A throne is a target. A knot is a system. 7:42. Pete stood up sharp. "Enough," he said. "Don, this kid is moving against you." Sally stood too. 2 movements at once. That's when the world splits into before and after. D'Angelo raised a hand. "Sit down, Pete." Pete didn't. "He's taking our power," Pete said. "Today it's paper, tomorrow it's our men." Lucky looked at Pete calmly. "Your men aren't yours anymore, Pete," he said. "They just don't know who they belong to yet." Pete went pale. Not from fear. From understanding Lucky wasn't speaking in theory. For 7:51. The shot didn't come from the room. It came from somewhere below. One crack, then another. The security outside the door started to hum. Sally stepped to the window. "It's them," he said. "Pete brought people." Pete smiled, finally honest. "Business," he said. "You like that word, Charlie. Here's business." D'Angelo rose slowly. "You brought gunfire into my house, Pete?" he asked. Pete shrugged. "Times changed, Don," he said. "I'm just helping them." Lucky looked at the old boss. "Don," he said, "right now, one thing gets decided. You're either the owner or you're a habit. Habits die loud. Owners die quiet." Yak 7:58. Lucky moved toward the door. Sally followed. D'Angelo didn't stop him. It was almost permission, almost a blessing, almost an admission. The boy had grown. The hallway smelled like gunpowder. Downstairs in the main room, 2 of Pete's men were shooting at the club's security. Not a battle, a sweep. A sweep is for making the crowd run. So later, nobody remembers faces. Lucky went down the stairs. Not running. Running is a request for luck. Lucky preferred a plan. 8:04. Sally covered Lucky with his shoulder at the turn. A shot hit the wall close, brick dusting their coats. "Christ," Sally breathed. Lucky didn't answer. He wasn't looking at the shooters. He was looking at the doors. Shooters are expense. Doors are exit. Lucky waved his men in. They worked quick. 2 pops, and the shooters dropped to their knees, more surprised than hurt. Not death. A stop. A stop is taking the situation without staining it forever. 8:11. Outside by the entrance stood a 3rd car. Black, no plates. Pete was beside it, already in the street, with 2 more men, and he smiled like the night belonged to him. Sally exhaled. "There he is." Lucky took a step. "Pete," he said calmly, "you picked a side." Pete raised his pistol, not aiming, showing. "I picked victory, Charlie," Pete said. "You just don't understand that victory doesn't like rules." Lucky nodded. "Victory likes order," Lucky said. "Otherwise they call it chaos and sell it in pieces." Pete smirked. "Then buy me." Lucky shook his head. "I don't buy what's already stolen," Lucky said. 8:13. Pete fired first. Not at Lucky. At Sally. Sometimes men don't shoot where the enemy is. They shoot where it hurts. Sally jerked, took a step back like he tripped over air. His hand clamped to his side. Dark blood ran. Lucky didn't scream. A scream is losing control for free. He fired back. Once. The bullet hit Pete in the shoulder. Pete dropped to one knee, the pistol falling from his hand. Not an execution. A signal. 8:16. Lucky walked up close to Pete. Pete looked up from below. Bad angle for pride. "You won't kill me," Pete whispered. "The Don won't allow it." Lucky glanced at the club window. Behind the curtain stood D'Angelo's shadow. The shadow didn't move. Intervention is a choice. And the Don, had already made his. Lucky leaned in to Pete. "I won't kill you here," Lucky said. "Too many eyes. But you're not Capo anymore. You're not Pete anymore. You're a warning." He straightened and nodded to his men. They hauled Pete up and walked him to the car. Not to death. To being erased from the list. In this world, sometimes it's worse to be forgotten than to be killed. 8:21. Sally sat on the curb with his back to the wall, breathing in short pulls, trying to smile, an old habit. "It's nothing," he whispered. "A scratch." Lucky crouched beside him. Lucky's coat got stained with blood. He didn't notice. Blood washes out. Something else doesn't. "Hold on," Lucky said. Sally looked at him through haze. "You did it," he said. "You made them. Listen." Lucky nodded. "Not yet," he said. "I only started." Sally swallowed. "Charlie," he whispered. "Don't turn this into a pretty story." Lucky leaned closer. "I'm not," he said. "I'm building a system." Sally tried to breathe deeper but couldn't. "A system," he repeated, tasting the word. Then, "Let it be. Worth it." His head dipped a little. The silence didn't arrive right away. First came the emptiness. Emptiness always comes first. Grief comes after. 8:39. They gathered again in the Palermo Club's back room, now without noise. D'Angelo sat heavy, like he'd aged a year in an hour. Marco Lanza watched Lucky closely, like a new rule he'd have to learn. Lucky stood, didn't sit. Men sit when they're asking for a place. He'd already taken his. D'Angelo spoke softly. "Your friend." Lucky nodded. "Yes, Don." A pause. "The price," D'Angelo said. Lucky didn't argue. "Yes," he said. "The price." Marco Lanza folded his hands. "So what now, Charlie?" Lucky set a sheet on the table. Not a sentence, not an oath, rules. "Now," Lucky said, "we do the thing you never liked. We make a deal. Not because we're kind, because war is expense, and profit likes silence." He looked at each man in turn. "Whoever breaks it won't get a bullet," Lucky said. "He'll get loneliness. And loneliness in this business is worse than death." D'Angelo closed his eyes for a second, then opened them. "Fine," he said. "A syndicate." The word landed in the room like a seal, and like a verdict. 9:12. Lucky went back to his room above the shop. The table was empty, because Sally wasn't sitting across from him anymore. An empty chair is the loudest proof. Lucky pulled out a clean notebook. Not a weapon, not a prayer, a notebook. He wrote the date at the top. And the first rule, nobody dies for nothing. If he died, somebody bought it. He stopped, staring at the line. Then he added the second, quieter, like it was only for himself. And if the price is a friend, then I owe it to him to make it work. 9:27. Outside the window, New York kept living. People hurried to work, trucks groaned, coffee got poured. The city pretended nothing happened. The city always pretends. That's its talent. Lucky closed the notebook. He didn't smile, and he didn't cry. Because at the top, you don't cry. At the top, you count. And sometimes the worst thing about victory isn't the enemies. It's the silence beside you where a friend should have been sitting.